Hi everyone, and welcome to this Pano2VR 101 Animation Editor webinar. Today, as we said, we're going to be looking at the animation editor. This is very much a 101, so where it is, where to find it, and where to find things and to get you going. So that'll be me, because I'm Martin from support, and I will also be joined by...
Hi, I'm Karen. As always, I'm sitting here in the background, helping with answering your questions. And speaking of questions, if you have one, please use the Q&A button or tab or section. That makes it easier for us to manage the questions. And yeah, that's it. And just, keep things on topic if you can. That's it for me. I'll see you later.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Right, so starting the project where we've left it off. This is our 4-node project that we've been working with the 101 webinars. So this is all about the animation editor. Now, what I wanted to show you quickly is the layout. The animation button is this one up here with the film reel, and it says animation. When we click it, you'll see that we're going to get a split screen at the bottom. You may or may not have this, but if you do, I wanted to show you the best way of doing it. Now, what you can do is, this is the animation editor at the bottom. It's blank because we've got nothing set. You want to see a little bit more of that, so you can actually either deselect the tour browser, that gives you more room, and then we can just bring up that editor a bit more. Or if we bring in the tour browser, what we can do is use this little button here. We can undock the animation editor and then drop that back in and dock it on top of the tour browser, so we can now switch either or either. There we go. So those are different ways. If you've not seen it, we have a video on window arrangements, and you can rearrange everything with Pano2VR. If you've got dual screens, you can even undock the animation editor and have it on a different screen, and then just have a massive viewer in the middle. So, that is basically just the aesthetics, if you like, of bringing up the tour browser window. Okay, so what is our animation editor and what does it do? Now, as I say, this is very much a 101, so I'm assuming, or I'm going to assume, that nobody knows what this is about. So what I'm going to do then is just minimize Pano2VR and bring in some examples. So these were all done with our animation editor. So I've got Auto Tour. Just open up this project. This is a 3-node tour of a park, and the idea of using this is that you could say, right, here is as a good example, I went to Barcelona, and we could jump on buses. We had a green bus and a red bus, and each one took a different route. Well, you can use the animation editor to reproduce that. So here I could start my tour going clockwise around the park. So I click the button. We now have produced this where it pans round. It's now going to change the nodes. It'll pan round now to the right and carry on. So we're now going right round the tour in a separate, determined path. So let's go back to the start. And now what we can do is click the auto start going counterclockwise. So this will now allow you to build these different paths through your tour. Again, it could be a stately home. So you walk through the front door. Do you turn left? Do you turn right? You've got this one, green pill, red pill type scenario. Okay, so that's one use of this, and it's using the animation editor in the output. Another method, we had intro videos. This was a project that's in the forum, and what this does is using the animation editor to make these this video. So this video is brought in using the video element, which we've covered in past 101 webinars. And so we've made this as an intro video where you can click it and then you can go into your panorama. Obviously, we're just using a test pano here. So that's another use of the animation editor. The other thing we can do is make custom fly-ins. Here is an example. This will work straight away. So when I double click, you'll see it work. Generally, a fly-in will be either from one projection or another, or from one view to another. It doesn't have to be separate projections, but it's basically just 2 points. Using our animation editor, you are able to create something a little bit more special. So here we've gone into an inverted little planet to a little planet. We're now going to rotate it to the right. Once we're here, now we're going to fly in to the building, and when we've done, we can start the tour. All right, so that's again yet another use of using the animation editor. Now that was a little bit long and drawn out because obviously I needed you to see it, but you know, you could do some quite fancy things. You could have changed between the stereo projection to the fisheye, back to the normal projection, etc. Okay, and one last other thing that we can do with the animation editor, which I tend to use quite a lot myself because I like it, is that you're probably aware that we have an auto rotate button. You click the button and you can get the panorama to rotate, and after a given amount of seconds you can get it to change nodes. You can get it to change nodes randomly or in a sequence that you desire or set. Now what I've done here is I've used the animation editor to create an auto rotate, but what I've done here is I've asked it to do a complete 180 rotation, then change nodes. So I've said, right, I'm going to give the timeline 20 seconds. I want to do a 180 in 20 seconds, and when it's done, then it changes the node. So it's not time dependent. It's actually on the rotation. It's how many degrees I've covered. It still is time dependent to a degree because I've set how long I wanted that for. But also with the different, shall we say, frames of the animation editor, I can do things like ease into the rotation. It speeds up, and then I can slow it down. So here you can see it speeds up. It's going to do a 180 spin. It's going to slow down when it gets to the end. Then we're going to get the transition, and then it's going to start again. So you've now got this nicer, in my opinion, a nicer auto rotation. That's if you don't want anything fancy. Of course, we could stop it at a certain point, zoom in, pull back, carry on rotating and do all of that. But this is just a nice little way of going through the project, and you're seeing the full 180. So these are the features that the animation editor can bring. Okay, now as I said, the animation editor, I did say, didn't I? The animation editor can be used for producing these automations in our HTML5 output as what you've seen, but we can also export as MPEG-4 video. So here you can see I've got my clockwise and counterclockwise animations that I built in Pano2VR, and I've exported them as MPEG-4 videos. So you could, as for argument's sake, as for like realtors, you could create an MPEG-4 video, which is far easier to embed on most social media websites than an HTML5 panorama. So you know, at the moment with Facebook, you can only drop in one panorama, so you can only see one image whizzing around. But a produced video like this, you can put into Facebook, and then someone could see the full tour. So here is the counterclockwise equivalent of that, or counterpart of that. So you can see we can do lots of things here. Okay, so that's what the animation editor is all about, and what I'm going to be showing you today. So we're back to Pano2VR. We've clicked the animation button. We've arranged our panel so I can see the full width of the editor at the bottom. Now, as a bit of a clue, it says double click to add a clip. So basically what we're doing is we want to add a clip for the visible panorama. So I can do that by double clicking. It gives me the clip title. I can click OK. As soon as we create a clip, our properties panel changes to show the properties of our animation. All right. So in our examples that I was showing you, most of the examples used a single sequence, but the example I showed you where we could go clockwise and counterclockwise, we had different sequences, and within the skin, which I'll show later, is that we can say, right, we can have an auto rotate button to whiz around in circles, but then we can have a button to auto rotate and pick the sequence that we've selected. So here we've got different sequences, and within the sequence we have our clip. So we've just added this clip for this panorama, so you'll see the clip displayed here. I can change the clip's title and duration, and we've also got another little selection here called loop, which again I'll explain when we get there. All right, so this is pretty much it. A couple of things I do want to cover before we go much further, and that is, if you are going to produce MPEG-4 videos, what you need to do is you've got to go to the internet and you've got to get FFmpeg. Pano2VR requires this to create the animated outputs. If we go to the help menu and go to help, this takes you to our website. If you just type in the search FFmpeg return, you'll see that glossary FFmpeg, and that should take you to a page where you can download it. You've got builds here for Windows, Mac and Linux. Once you've downloaded it, what I have done is I've put the FFmpeg app into my applications folder, and then what I've done, or what you then have to do, is tell Pano2VR where to find it, and you do that by going into Pano2VR's preferences on the Mac, its file settings for the PC, and here we'll see under the FFmpeg tab you select where it is. So Pano2VR knows where to use to find it and to be able to produce its video outputs. Okay, right. The other thing is, as well, is if you're producing video outputs, we have in the menu bar, I've got mine to auto hide, but we have this animation menu at the top here, and what we've got is frame overlays and frame colors. Basically, if you want to know what your video is going to look like in, say, I don't know, a 16:9 aspect ratio, you click this, you see I've now got a couple of borders, and this shows me what this video will look like. So you can see it's clipped to the top and bottom. This is why it's fairly important that you use this if you're producing an MPEG-4 video from an animation. Also, if you wish, you can change the color of the overlay as well to make it a little bit more pronounced. Okay, so let's put that back. So let's go back to dark gray, and I'm going to put my frame overlay to none. You can see we've got a 4:3 or even a 640x480 window. All right, so that's me back there, because obviously if I'm just producing this to automate a standard tour like an HTML5 output, I don't need to worry about any of those. Right, so that's enough of me talking about this. How do we animate something? Right, well, we're at the first panorama. I've double clicked or clicked on the, I've double clicked and added the clip. What I could do is, if I delete the clip, I could just single click the green cross and that will add a clip as well. But also, if you click and hold the green cross, you then get where you can create a flying clip. Now you can create a flying clip per panorama. You can only create one, because obviously when you enter a node it flies in, so therefore you're only going to create one per node. And if I've got a clip that's got loads of keyframes and I really like it, but I only need an adjustment, I can duplicate a clip and then just do a quick alteration. But anyway, so that's generating my clip. All right, so we're at clip 1, it's at the courtyard, and its default length is at 10 seconds. So let's do the animation. So how do we do it? Right, well, the easiest way is just literally click and drag to where you want your first motion to be. So I'm at the start here, so this is my keyframe where I was at that moment in time. And if I click the magic keyframe, what it will do is it will create another keyframe showing me where I am in this moment of time. It's a fixed point, that's where it is. But what the animation editor will do is add all the frames in between. So you've got this motion in between. Okay, so what I could do from here then is scroll back to the start and click a magic keyframe. I've now made my animation 11 seconds long. If I click this button to rewind it, I can press play, and we've now created our first little animation. Okay, cool. Right, we've got another little button here. Of course, this is add clip. This is obviously to delete a clip. So this is our magic keyframe. This one is our magic keyframe settings. Now, what I did was I started here, rotated around to the bush, and then come back again. And that created a clip of, let's click in here, of 11 seconds. Now, this is because if I click this button, we're running at a speed of 10 degrees per second. So this is the pan rate. If I was to increase that to say 20, this actually will then start to increase the speed that we'll go. So again, if I delete this clip, double click and add it again. All right, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. So I'm going to scroll over to the bush, get that dead in the center of my crosshair. If you wanted to know where the crosshair came from, it's just using this button here, toggle grid. So that's my grid. All right, so I'm using that to help me line up where I'm looking. I'm now going to click the magic keyframe. I'm now going to come back where I centered in the middle of this blue hotspot and click the magic 10 frame keyframe. Remember, we were at 11 seconds to start with. Because I've speeded it up by 20 degrees per second, we're now at 5.5 seconds. So if I rewind and press play now, you'll see that it happens a lot quicker. So you can determine from the outset how fast you want your animations to run without adjustment. I will add that because you can obviously go in and adjust this afterwards. But generally speaking, how fast you want them to run without having to go back and start editing anything. Right, I think on that happy little note, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my first shout out to Karen and see if we've got any questions so far. Karen.
Hi. Yeah, sorry. I'm always searching for the mute button, and in Zoom you can just use the space bar. I don't know why I make it so difficult.
Well, I do try and sort of lead you in and say I'm going to ask Karen in a minute about, but I totally didn't. So my apologies.
You are usually so great at that. Yeah, you usually give me a little bit of a heads up. Yeah. So we have one question. It's coming from Luke Schengen. And he's asking, why are the keyframes not added where the cursor is, but rather at a preset time?
Right. Because we're using the magic keyframe and we're using the speed. Yeah. So basically what's happened here is, as I've said, right, we're going to start here and move to there and click the magic keyframe. What it's done is that the Pano2VR has calculated where that keyframe needs to be in time to achieve that position. All right, magic. so it's all down to magic keyframes or no magic or pixie dust or whatever you want to call it, but it's really down to the speed here. I mean, what you can do later on, what I'm going to do is scrub this, and we're going to do it manually, where you can actually scrub the playhead manually and then set the keyframes manually. But when you're using the magic keyframe and the speed, all you're doing here is moving the panorama magic keyframe, move the panorama magic keyframe. You're not actually having to interact with the animation editor at all to actually make an animation, which is cool. Yeah. Right, any more?
Yeah, no, I think that was a good question, in that this is where it doesn't act like other timelines that you might see. And so you can really quickly add something by just moving the panorama, hit enter, move the panorama, hit enter, and be done.
Absolutely. I was using the magic keyframe button, but if I hover over it, so let's hover over it, you should see it says add magic keyframe by clicking it, or use the enter key, and you can add it that way. When you start getting used to this and using your keyboard shortcuts, this actually becomes a quick task. Anyway, sorry, Karen, over to you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you. That was so Luke is asking, if he can move the keyframes, and absolutely, yeah. And you just keep watching. It gets even more amazing, I swear.
Yeah, everything is not set in stone. As I say, this first bit is magic keyframes and Pano2VR creating the animation for you. You're just telling it where you'd like to see, and then we can get more advanced later on, but not too advanced because this is 101. We have lots of videos elsewhere. I'm not sure if Karen's done it yet, but Are you going to dig out the link
Yeah,
to the
I'll dig out a link.
and put it in the chat? Perhaps people can look at it afterwards, guys. Afterwards, not during, or you'll miss stuff. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, I was going to say that's the last question, but AJ just came in and he's asking, can you keyframe in interactive functions like after rotation, and then the next clickable element slowly fade in and activate?
You can. We do have a video on that, and this is not really a 101 thing, but basically what we can do is have a track. So just quickly, just to explain, we can have a track that can affect variables in the skin editor. Okay, so what you can do is have an animation where it can pan over to one side, and when it gets to a certain point within the animation, that variable can change, that can trigger, I don't know, an audio clip or a video pop-up or something like that in an HTML5 output. So there is tons of stuff it can do, but for 101 and people just coming to this for the first time, I'd rather not show that right now.
Yeah. So AJ goes, nice. Yeah. It's totally cool. Like I think I just want to say this from off the bat is I think the animation editor is one of those unknown awesomeness of Pano2VR that you can do so much with it, and it's like an extra tool in the toolbox. You don't need to use a separate editor. It's really anyway, I'll let Martin carry on. One of my favorite things of Pano2VR is the animation editor. So I'm excited for this webinar. Okay, I'll shut up now.
Okay, right. Cool. Thank you, Karen. Right, just as another heads up as well, obviously we're looking at the lag of the webinar. I can assure you when I'm moving stuff around, it looks nice and smooth and all the animations are really nice. Unfortunately, I think with the webinar, you might start seeing a little bit of chop. I don't know. I was going through this earlier with Karen and she was experiencing a bit of chop, but for me, it was butter smooth. So, please don't, think that, oh, this is rubbish, it's chopping about. When you do it locally, it really is nice. Okay, so with that said then, so we've added a clip. I've shown you a couple of ways we can add clips. We've also added keyframes using the magic keyframe button. We can, let's just, I'll tell you what, I'm going to delete that again and double click and add the clip again, because we were asked, can we add these keyframes manually? We can, because what I can do is say, right, 2 seconds in, I'll scrub this scrubber, the playhead over into the 2 second mark. I'll move that over there, and then I can click this button, which is toggle keyframes. Now, the top one toggles all keyframes. We've got pan, tilt, field of view, or you can toggle them individually. All right, so I'm just going to click that to add all three, and then I'm going to move the playhead again to another 4 seconds, or up to 4 seconds. Spin it back again, and rather than click the button, we'll just do the keyboard shortcut, enter, boom, and there it is. All right, that's actually it's gone over because of the time. I didn't do it quick enough. Okay, so I can actually select all those by drag and selecting. All right, watching, click on a keyframe and drag it over to the 4 second mark. So that's manually changing that as well. Now, what's also pretty cool is if you, like I'm on the Mac, so everything I'm doing, I'm using the command and then a keyboard. If you're on the PC, obviously it's control and then a keyboard key. So I'm using command A to select all of the keyframes. If I hold down the option on the Mac or the Alt on the Alt on the PC, if I click and drag the last keyframe, you'll see that we're expanding or making the timeline longer proportionally, okay, which is quite cool. All right, I think that's actually a really good feature. When I was first showed this myself, I was like, that's interesting, because basically what I was expecting was having to drag these out individually, but yeah, we can select them all, hold down the Alt key or Option key on the Mac, and you can drag these out proportionally. All right. Also, if I just click and just select those keyframes, and without pressing the Option key, I can move them as a block, or I can select all of these, and again, without pressing the Option or Alt key, move those as a block. Okay, so let's put that back there. I'm going to press Command A to select them all, hold down the Option key and bring that back for 4 seconds. Okay, so that's my timeline. If I go back and press play, you'll see that it whizzes round to where I wanted it to be and then come back again, and then it carries on chugging away. So I could actually come over to here, type in 4 seconds, or you right button click in the bar at the top and you can trim the timeline to the last keyframe. Bang. And that's my 4 second set for me. So with that said, I can now, have this as an auto rotate. So let's, as an example, create the output. And what I'm going to say, if I click auto rotation, use animation. All right, so that should be enough to do that, I think. I can't remember if I need to. There we go. So that is our animation, and it will keep rocking backwards and forwards. Now you can see that little jump there where I didn't quite get the tilt right. So this now takes me back nicely to my little loop button. Because what you can do also, because we got, basically with Pano2VR, you're probably aware by now, you can right button click and you can see context menus pop up, for the output and where to find it and whatnot. And here we can trim the timeline. But also what we can do is click and drag this end bar, and we can affect the timeline here. Or I could have gone up here and added another few seconds. So let's just bring that back, to about there. That'll do. What I can do, if I select this loop button or loop checkbox, this is what it's going to do. When we finished our timeline, it carries on, and that is going to take us back exactly to where it started. So the loop actually does give you a proper loop. And what it also does is depends how far that you've rotated out. If you've rotated nearly 180 degrees and then you use this loop to come back automatically to where you started, it will take the shortest route. So if you're not quite 160, it will go back the way you came. If it's gone over the 180, it'll go back the way you came. If it's gone over the 180, then it'll carry on going back round to finish off the 160. All right, so again, if I what we're going to do, let's just produce that, click the auto rotate button, and what it should do now is come back, but with no bump. It's a nice, it did, but it's nice and smooth. It wasn't a bump and then started off. It's obviously trying to find its start position. The other thing you can do, which brings me up to quite nicely, is I'm going to do Command Z just to get rid of, actually no, I'm just going to delete the loop here, so the dotted line will just carry on where this left off. Now these are our keyframes. Now we spoke about these, and we have several different types of keyframe. Now I know I'm jumping a little bit, but bear with me, because one of the things with our keyframes is if we do a right button click for our context menu, we can edit the value. Now our problem is that we're bumping, so we're starting off, if we go back, our tilt is at 0, and if I go forward and come back to this keyframe, you'll see our tilt now is at 60. So I've got a couple of options here. I can set that to 0 there and click the toggle keyframe, and that should, oh, he says, or does it? Yeah, that should do that. Is that right? No, obviously, right, okay. Because I've got a keyframe in the middle, it's actually gone up and then it's coming back down again, which is fine. This is what the keyframes are there for. So again, if I press the auto rotate, that should go up, back, and then there's no bump. It's only bumping again because I've got this little gap here. The other thing I could have done is if I could right button click and enter value, it says it's value there. I could have entered, I don't know, let's do I don't know, 20. So I'm changing that value, so that's going to cause it to look up slightly. So again, we've got this going up. So again, if I wanted to adjust a value, I can right button click on a keyframe, edit the value, take that back to 0, click OK, done. Now if we come back to this keyframe, this moment in time, we are looking at a tilt of 0.91. Again, I can right button click, edit the keyframe and set that back to 0. And now we should not experience any little bumps at all. So let's try that. Oh, there we go. Now we did with the pan value obviously wasn't quite there, but as you saw, we didn't get the up and down. We can set those keyframes. Okay, now talking about keyframes. Okay, we have several different types. If I select a keyframe, all right, we get these little handles, and we can affect the curve of the animation. So you can see we can dip right down and then bump out, and yeah, we can really upset things here. So let's just come back on that. But basically, we have different types of keyframes. Now we have linear. Now I know this looks like Bezier, but we looked this up. It's Bezier keyframe. That's its name. So basically, with the linear, it will just the animation will just go right in, and it's got no start. It doesn't have any ease in or ease out. It just runs. All right. With the Bezier keyframe, we've got these curves where we can adjust the type of curve coming into and out of that keyframe. So we're just affecting that here. Now, what we can also do is, if I right button click in this scroll bar, we can fit to graph. And when I select this, I can now really play with some of these settings. Now, let's have a little play. If I hit the space bar or use the space bar, that's again a keyboard shortcut to stop and start. Now that's a little bit extreme, to be fair, so let's just bring that one up. And what we're going to do is we can create like a bouncy effect. That's actually not that clever, but you can see what's going on. We can adjust the curve coming in and coming out of that. All right, so yeah, we can really play with this to get some of these animations to be that little bit special. Right, so again, we were talking about the types of keyframes. We've got the continuous Bezier. What that does is it doesn't give you any let's select that. It creates a nice smooth reaction. You can see I'm not jumping, there's no pulses or anything like that. It's a nice smooth animation between the two key point these two outer keyframes. So yeah, that's quite a nice one. We also have hold frames, and I just jumped that. We also have hold frames. Hold frames are really cool if you want to produce something like a slideshow effect. As an example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a different panorama. Rather than having to go through to the animation, the tour browser, select a pano and back again, what I'm going to do is use the keyboard shortcut on the Mac. I'm on the command and square bracket to the right, and I can scroll through my different panoramas. He says, either I've written that or crashed it. Bear with me. Yeah, okay. So we'll open that up again. Right, perhaps I won't do that then. He says, so let's go to tour browser, go to that one, and animation. So here is an inside view of the church, and what I want to do is set up some hold frames. So again, I'm going to create a clip for this. So I'm going to double click, add a clip. We can now see I've got my second clip added to my sequence. Interestingly enough, if I'm using this as a auto rotate, it will go through the clips in sequence of this sequence. So here it will go to courtyard, it'll do what we've set up, and then it will go to church 1. So this panorama here. So you can actually, when you're creating your produced auto rotation, you can actually select what the customer's going to see. As an example, if you're doing real estate and you want them to take an auto tour, you can show them, perhaps the lobby, the living area, the kitchen, master bedroom, and say back garden. You don't have to have all of the locations in the sequence. All right, so that's another cool thing. But we're going to stick with this because what I want to do is I've created a clip for the church. I'm going to say, right, I want to start it looking at this, I don't know, this here. All right, so I'm going to select the toggle keyframes, and this is now going to start this animation at this point. All right, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that over here, so 1 second in, or say 2 seconds in actually, and manually create another set of keyframes. And at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to move, actually no, I'm going to move that over here, so at 4 seconds I'm going to move this to another view, say the altar, and zoom in. It's a bit too far, but you get what I mean. So we're at the altar, and I'm going to create another set of keyframes there. Now you can see there's a curve going towards that, all right? But what I'm going to do is change those to a hold keyframe. So what that's going to do now is that's going to hold that position until I get to those keyframes, and then boom, it's going to take me straight to that view. So what you could do is having lots of keyframes. So let's just go to another 2 seconds in. Let's have a look at something else. I don't know. Yeah, let's have a look at the ceiling. All right, so we'll have a look at the ceiling, and I'll set some keyframes here. You can see we've got these curves. I can select these keyframes and make these hold keyframes. So now what we've got is, if I wind that back and press the play button, you'll see that we've got this view. We are going to here, and then boom, we're looking at the ceiling. So again, the different types of keyframes, you can make the different types of effect. As an example, I did have a theta set up between a badminton match. I can't show it was a 360 video, I can't show it, but basically I was using this so as one person bat the shuttlecock and took it over the fence, I used a whole keyframe, so you saw one person bat and then it took you straight to the other person batting without having to pan around, because obviously if you're panning around and you're doing it quite quickly, you could make people feel a little bit nauseous, so that's not particularly a good idea. Right, okay. Other things we can do with the keyframes, again, if I do the Command A, I can select them all. I can right button click, and then we can do things like stretch the keyframes. This is really cool. If I wanted to double the length of this animation, I could just type in 200%, boom, and it's now twice as long. You know, that helps you do that. Again, if I wanted to reduce the size, I could do exactly the same thing with everything selected. Or as we did before, I could do Command A to make sure everything's selected, press down the hold and the Option key, and then we can bring everything down into proportion. Right button click in the top bar, and then we can trim the timeline to the last frame. There we go. So that's now our animation for inside the church. Okay, so that's that. All right, I did chop off the last keyframe, so let's see where that goes, and that's back to the ceiling. So I'll put a keyframe there, 2 seconds in, and then we can trim it to the last. Okay, one of the other things I want to show you with the interface is, I say one of the other things, I'm going to say that a lot, there's actually many things I want to show you, but me being me, it's one other thing. If you've got lots of keyframes and it starts to get busy because you've made a real long animation, I don't know, you're going to do a virtual walkthrough, you know, a very, very expensive property, you want to make the animation really slick and nice. If you want to start editing and doing things, you can actually drag the, you can actually slide in on the timeline, and you can zoom into areas, so you can, you know, really work on this. Now the red line here represents the timeline between the two ends. So this would be at the start, this would be at the end. So if I was to drag that right over, you can see that we're now at the start. You can right button click here, and this is where this reset timeline comes from. That's what it does, is it resets your timeline. Okay, so this is the animation editor. This is how to get cracking with making, or get started making animations. By far the easiest thing to do. Let's just go to another node. So let's go over here. Double click. As I say, by far the easiest thing to do is just to literally rotate the pano, hit the return key. You know, we can zoom out, hit the return key, zoom over here, hit the return key. Keep doing that until you're done. When you're done, that's your animation built. That's the simplest way of doing it. Once you've got to know what the keyframes are doing and how they work and how they affect it, from the smooth to making the little jumps or whatever you want to do, then you know, then you can get right into this and really have a lot of fun making these. The other thing I would like to point out at this stage is that there's a couple of agencies up in that I know where the photographers actually go in and do the 360 shoot, and then they make their animation MPEG-4 output, because what they want is the viewer to see what they want them to see. They do not want the virtual tour where you know, the customer may not necessarily go where you want them to. Now, there's two thoughts here. With the video, all right, I'm saying internet connection unstable. Right, so with the video, you know, that can be placed everywhere, but with the virtual tour, that's when you can add your auto tour button. So your customer's got the freedom to move about. You hit the auto tour button and it takes you where you want them, so you're directing that tour for them. Okay, so we've got one sequence set up. We've done this. Let's just output this and click the go button. This is going to be quite random because we've done lots of odd things. So here you can see these sequences that we've set up running. Okay, so this was our jumping around, and then our last sequence was our door. Okay, back and doing whatnot. So as you can see, it's not a difficult thing to use, and once mastered, I think you guys are going to really like doing this. Right, so how did this work with my button, or rather right, okay, so let's jump back. So that was my default sequence. What I could do is I can click the green button and add another sequence. So we can say, I don't know, what are we going to call it? New. That'll do. Right, so that's my new sequence. Now what I can do with my new sequence is I can use the plus button and select different clips that we've already created, or I can start new sequences, because so let's go back to the start panorama. So I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut and the bracket to start here. You can already see that we've got one clip here. All right, so what I can do is add another clip 2. So I'm adding clip 2 now to my new sequence. So it could be that in the default sequence, this could have started panning to the left. In now clip 2, for the same panorama, I could start panning to the right. Okay, so basically I've now got multiple sequences with different clips. Now again, with the clips, if I select the default, you can change them around. Okay, so we've gone courtyard, entrance, church, which would make more sense. I actually produced it courtyard, church 1 and then entrance, but you can just move them around and set whichever order you wish. Okay, what I want to do now is go to the skin, all right, and have a look at the auto rotate button. So this is my start auto rotate button, and if we have a look, it says it's going to mouse click start auto rotate, blah blah blah, and we're going to do the start the auto rotation. Now the reason why it's doing its, hang on, let's get rid of the skin, don't save, is under auto rotation I've actually got selected the default sequence. All right, I could start with the new sequence, but I'm going to start with the default sequence. But if I wanted to introduce a button to start that new sequence, all right, I could, let's just as an example, just add a rectangle. We're going to use that as my start sequence button. So it's going to be mouse click, it's going to be under auto rotate, and it's going to start animation. Here we go. So if you've got a sequence selected under the auto rotate output on the HTML5 output, you just need to stop and start the auto rotate for it to use that sequence. But if you're using multiple sequences, then you can have different buttons to start separate animations. So we're going to start an animation, and then I can ask this one to use this sequence. So what I've now got is, I don't know if I actually did anything with that sequence, did we? Let's have a quick look. So let's go back to the new sequence. No, it didn't have anything in there. So let's just go to there, add a magic keyframe, and back again, add a magic keyframe. All right, trim to like keyframe to last, oh, excuse me, trim timeline to last keyframe, and let's publish this out. So what I should have now is this going that away. If I stop that, and when I press this button, it now goes that away. So as you can see, we can have, this is how you can use the skin to activate different sequences of animations, if that's not too complicated. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to start to bring in Karen. Karen, are you getting ready? Because I'm just reaching over for a glass and I need to drink something because my mouth has gone dry. So over to you. Any questions?
Yeah. So Luke was just asking, or just making a comment that he didn't see you change nodes with the keyboard shortcut. Can you just do
absolutely
that really quickly? Right. He's using Control or Command square bracket left right. So
that's it. So if I hold down the command, so it's Control on the PC, so it's Command, and then I'm using the square bracket, that one, to scroll through. All right, so if I was to select it, and then we can scroll through the... So that saves you having to, otherwise you would need to dip down to the tour browser, select your panorama, and then go back to the animation editor. That's the manual way of doing it if you wish, or you can just...
Yeah. There's sometimes, depending on my mood, I'll move the tour browser to one of the top side panels, so that, and then have the animation on the bottom, so I always have my Tor browser visible. Like the Tor browser doesn't have to be stuck as a tab on the bottom if you don't want it to. You can have it even if you have the space on your screen, you can detach it and work with it that way too. If you're
absolutely,
not, if you're not a keyboard crazy person. Yeah,
absolutely. Or even in this case, because we're using the keyboard shortcuts, you could just hide the tour browser. You don't actually need to see the thing. You can just use tab through, or not tab through, but you could use the command or control and just use the brackets to scroll through all your different nodes. So yeah, many different ways to skin the same cat, as they say. But as I did say earlier, we do have a video on window and window arrangements and saving them and how you do that. But that's the beauty. It's totally up to you how you do it.
Yeah, unless, like Luke is saying, that on the Swiss French keyboard, this doesn't work. So, I guess I guess you don't have the brackets on the main keys there.
Does he have? Do you have curly brackets? Do
no,
you
I
have
think
a curly
it's also
bracket?
hidden on the German keyboard, but there is another shortcode. I think it's Shift Apple N, Control Alt N. That's right. Control Alt N or Command Alt Option N.
Okay, let's try that.
I think.
Ooh, no, that's new. That's just created a new instance of Pano2VR. So let's not do that one, eh?
There's one in there.
There's one in there somewhere. But I mean, if you haven't got it, then take it back to the tour browser. But I'm sure this is cropped up in the past, and I'm sure there is a keyboard shortcut for this.
Yeah, there is.
Going to be it's going to be our man Christoph for this one.
Yeah, he's sending it Control Shift N or in Control Shift P. Whatever. There is a keyboard shortcut page on the docs. I'll post that again, and it should be there.
So Control.
Sorry
Alt,
about that.
and,
Yeah.
Alt.
And he has another question. Can you apply transitions like dissolve to clips and sequences and
right? I'm glad you asked this.
Is that a segue into the next thing?
It will be. It will be. Because obviously what I want to explore is, I mean, obviously what we've done so far with is the HTML5 output. As you change nodes, you're using your transition. But what do you do with the MPEG-4 video? That follows next. But go on, carry on. Karen, you still there?
I was trying the Zoom keyboard shortcut to unmute myself. Didn't work. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries.
But I think that's I think that's it for the questions right now. So, yeah.
Right, okay. All right, so let's get back into this then. So what I'm going to do then is go back to, if I click in the timeline when we've got an active clip, the properties panel changes to what I want. Sorry, changes to the animation properties. So I'm going to change my default sequence, and as we've seen here, we've got different panoramas. Now, okay, if you click the play button, by default it will play, and then when it gets to the end it bounces back and it restarts. Here we go, cool. If we go to the animation properties in the toolbar at the top, we can see we've got loop, and you can see that at the moment and the default is current clip, but we can select all clips. So now when I press the play, it will go through all of the clips in your sequence. So let's just do that. So I'll get there, then it goes into obviously I changed the sequence to entrance, and then the next one will be this church where we look around. Okay, so let's boom and do this. Right, here we go. So that's what we can do. So that's actually quite cool if you want to see it. Now you're probably saying to yourself, but I asked about transitions. Well, you'll see the transitions on the output. If we go to the output panel, you'll see that, let's just close that up. If I go to transitions, you'll see that I've added a cross dissolve, and that's exactly what you're going to get. So if I press this button, we will get the HTML5 output cross dissolve. Well, in this case it was zoom in, zoom out, and we've got the cross dissolve happening. Okay, now what I haven't shown yet is the animation output. Okay, so that's next up. So what I'm going to do is to make this a little bit easier to see, so I'm going to squish that down a bit. As I say, you can actually undock this and move the animation timeline to one side or a different screen to make the screen a bit bigger or do what you need. I'm just going to leave it there for the minute. I am going to drag out the panel, and here I'm going to add, if I click the green plus button, I'm going to select animation as my output. Here we go. Now I can right button click here, edit it, and just call it something different. So let's just call it video. I'm not actually going to produce an animation because I don't have the time, and I'll explain why and why it's good that I can't. All right, so bear with me. But the first bar that we get, we can expand, is transitions. So we now get the very similar transitions, well, I say very similar transitions, to our HTML5 output. So we can set up the cross dissolve and all that sort of stuff. And also under the animation, we can choose which sequence do I want to output. So I could choose the new sequence, or I can choose the default sequence. I can choose the resolution of the video, how many frames do I want. Basically, if you've got time, do 60 because that is butter smooth, but 2430 is just fine. Rendering, oversampling, that will, if you select oversampling and motion blur, that would probably give you the very best output. But we've actually found that with the oversampling deselected, hence why they're deselected as default, you don't get that much difference with using or not using the oversampling, but it speeds up the output quite a bit. So our default is not to have that done. Also with the motion blur. Now you'll think about what's happening. What we're doing is moving the panorama a little bit, making a screen print, basically moving it a bit more, making another print, moving it a bit more, making another print. So you can actually get steps in between each frame. So what we can do is add a motion blur. When we do that, it's how many samples. So I think I'm right in saying that, and I'm just looking at my my teletype for Thomas and Christoph to correct me if I'm wrong, but basically what we can choose is we can sample the frame before and the frame after, or we can sample, we can sample the frame I'm at and the next frame, and then what we can do is we actually generate a frame mixing those two and slide it in the middle. So the idea is that we are actually generating a new frame made out of the two, so we get this like fade frame in the middle, so half faded from one frame and half faded from another. The idea is that gives us a much smoother output, so as the things rotate you don't see any stuttering. Even at 30 frames a second, if they were sharp frames then you would see a little bit of stuttering, but with this you don't. So that's basically that. The format of the frames that we're generating, TIFF generates the fastest frames. If you were to set that to JPEG, one would think, well, JPEGs are smaller. But of course, you've got to apply whatever you apply to TIFFs, to JPEGs. You've got to, some compression and whatever. But with a TIFF, it isn't compressed. It doesn't need to do that. Bang, you can make the frames much faster. So you're better off leaving that as TIFF. And also the file name. Basically, I know it's saying Pano2VR here, but basically when it's finished, it will create pano.mpeg4. That's if you're going to produce a video output. All right, so these are the frames. Now, Pano2VR gives you the option to generate the video file or not. All right. Now, the reason for this is that you may want Pano2VR to generate all your frames for you, and then you use those frames in a different application, as an example. Okay. But of course, it's better if you select, generate video for you, and Pano2VR will then use FFmpeg to create the video. The MPEG quality, we have normal, high and lossless. The lossless is actually is lossless, but to be honest, I don't really see too much difference between high and lossless, but the lossless tends to be a little bit finicky in playing. You can use VLC to play it back. I don't think QuickTime can play it back. It's what FFmpeg does to it. I really don't know the ins and outs of it, but if you want your video to play everywhere, choose normal and high, and it will play everywhere. Of course, Pano2VR is making hundreds, if not thousands, of frames, and then it uses those frames to generate the video. You can select for Pano2VR to delete all of those frames when it's done. If you don't, what you're going to do is you'll fill up a folder full of frames. You'll have an MPEG-4 video, but you'll still have all your frames. The other thing here is select that. Don't select that. Right. Okay. So let's just click the output and see what this would do. All right. So if I was to select, I'm going to create a video. It asks me, do I want to all frames of this? So I want to do all frames of the clips, or all clips or sequences, or I can do just different. I can choose each clip individually. And also, as an example, if I've generated and I'm on frame 500, I've made 500 frames, and I don't know, we've had a power cut or something's happened, and you restart your computer, you'll have the number of frames left in your output folder. What you can do is select this, type in the frame number to run to the last frame, click render, and you can carry on where you left off. So it isn't the end of the world if you've got to, if you've waited and you've generated all the clips and it's gone wrong. Now, why does Pano2VR take its time in rendering? If I was just to go to all frames and click the go button, so let's render this, you'll see that I'm doing frames 1, 2. It's taking its time. We're merging, remapping, doing all that. So in this particular clip, I'm only going to have 573 frames. So why is it taking its time? Well, it's taking its time because we sample the full resolution of each we sample the full resolution of the panorama for each frame. Now, where this comes into its own is the clarity and how good it looks. If you've got, say, like a Giga panorama, we have an example on our website. Let's find it. So if I go to our website, we go to products, Pano2VR. Let's go to the examples page. If I can find it, let's go to the gigapixel image with projections. Now, what's happening here is you'll see that, here we've got in the background here, it's quite blurry. If I zoom in, because we're doing multi-resolution, we're loading the higher resolution tiles and it's crystal clear. All right, so that's pretty normal for Pano2VR. That's nothing, it's good, it's cool, but it's what we do. All right, but with the animation, you can see that it's kicked in, and now what it's doing is using that same multi-resolution. So if I was creating frames for a video output, we would sample each frame to give you so as you zoomed right in your video, it will still be crystal clear. All right, so it would look like this in the video. You know, I think other video or editors that do this, I think some call them reframes or something. They actually take the single resolution and then they scale in or scale out or do something. And when they zoom right in, you can see that it's not as sharp. But Pano2VR samples each frame or samples the panorama for each frame, and so therefore each frame is made so it's really, really clear. Okay, I think I've spoken about animation to death. I don't know if there's anything else if anybody wants to hear anything. I think I've done it. Karen, I'm going to throw it back to your way and say, do we have any more questions?
Yes. Thomas is asking, what if you want to adjust only a part of a clip? Like make one move, say from one keyframe to the next, but slower, and leave the rest as it is.
Okay, not quite
what
sure.
What if you want to adjust only a part of a clip, as in make one move slower, but leave the rest as it is?
I have incoming peoples. Hang on. So I'm assuming he's saying, can I adjust this keyframe? Quite rightly he's asking this because I forgot to do it. And that is, you can select a block and just move it. I think I did actually show this. Or we can select a single keyframe and move it as an individual. And we can move it up and down and we've got full control of it. I think that's what I'm being asked. Is that right, Thomas? Is that a yes or a no?
Yeah, I don't know. Or if like easing in and easing out, is that another?
Yeah, that's.
Oh yes, he says thank you. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Cool.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I did forget a keyframe. You can select any of the keyframes and move them around manually and adjust the curves to them. And as I say, if you adjust which type of keyframe type it is, you can adjust the curves differently and do all sorts. You can really go to town. The best thing to do with this is just play with it, experiment. That's all I did. I was never a video expert. I'm still not, but I have lots of fun with this, and you know, I'm told every now and then that I make a really cool output, so you know, it's good. It's good fun.
I think Martin brought up this project where he had done this badminton 360 video project, and it was really cool how he did that. Too bad he can't show it. Yeah, so let's see. Marcus has a question. Is there a simple way to hide all the hot spots during the animation? So basically hiding the skin, right, Marcus? Like if you have the animation going, you want to hide the skin. Is that...
Okay then, yeah, is the answer to that one. Basically what I would do is, obviously we've spoke about variables and actions, and I think what I would do is with the animation timeline at the bottom, we can actually add a track new, and I could add a variable track, and what we could do is when the variable becomes active, can change or rather when I hit a certain keyframe in the variable track, I can change the value of a true false variable. Again, I didn't really want to explain this too much in the 101, but as we're to the end of it now, I mean, if you're not interested, switch off. But what I could do is get the let's do that. Let's put a so descriptions. Let's just put var and then type. Let's just do true false. Oh, that's text true false. Click OK. Okay, all right, yeah, I've also got another way as well, but okay. So basically I could add that track, and then basically I could trip a variable. The variable then could ask to hide everything, or as Thomas is saying, is if I was to go to a hotspot under the visible, we could add a logic block to say that if hang on, I forget where I've put it now. Where is it? Where's the auto rotate? Under view, right? Okay. So is auto rotating? If that's true, visible can be false. So there you go. So I just need to I'm going to watch my screen and I'm going to say to Thomas out loud. So basically, if I start an animation or I start an auto rotation, both will be seen as an auto rotating as a trigger, right? Is that right? Yes, no? I hope. Right, okay. So yes, we're we're sort of going to go with that. So yeah, so if you start an animation or you start an auto rotation, once it's rotating, you'll get this trigger. And if the trigger, if it's rotating is true, then we can hide all the hotspots. So yeah, we can do that.
Let's see. That was Marcus's question. Dylan is asking, oh, Dylan, I don't know. Any chance of uploading the badminton video somewhere and giving a link for inspiration? Oh, no. Don't think so.
The problem there is
Sorry, I
that
oversold it.
yeah, no, the problem there is that one of the people in the video was a family member, no longer a family member, so therefore don't want to show it just in case. And so I'll just leave it as that.
It's a permissions issue, privacy thing. Yeah.
I mean, it was good at the time, and it'd probably be fine. But I'm just, permissions. I think enough said.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. But if you can imagine, like it could be anything that goes back and forth, and it was 360 videos, so you were just watching two people go back and forth and using hold frames. It was really neat. So.
No, I don't know if I've chucked it in here.
It's old.
Yeah,
it's an old one.
No, I haven't. Hang on.
You've gotten a new computer since then. It's that old.
I have, but no.
And Jeffrey, just in the meantime, while you're looking at for projects, Jeffrey's asking if there are any examples that we can recommend featuring MP4s as it relates to real estate. And I don't have anything off the top of my head where...
Well, no, but we don't, because on the understanding, on support, people ask you to do stuff and how to do stuff, and you help them, and they go off and build the project, and we never see the back end of it, so or the finished article. So it's difficult. All I can suggest is probably go on to the website gallery in the forum, or go to the gallery users group on Facebook and see if anybody stuck anything up there. But basically, as I said, some of the agencies do prefer the videos. They obviously sell it with the virtual tour as well, and it's on the same page, so you'll have a link to the virtual tour, but what's in your face straight away. So as soon as the page opens, you've got this video, you can click play and you can watch the video, and then you see all the highlights. That's the great thing about this. You can have your different clips in a sequence just to show the highlights of a property. It doesn't have to show every single node, so you actually get this cut down version of all the best bits. So
yeah, and I think I think having an auto rotation or a video option for real estate is nice, because you can, if people don't want to click through a VR tour, there's another option where they can just, hit play on the video and sit back and watch. So, people don't have to interact and deal with the tour. So, yeah, Jeff says, okay, he'll make one and share it afterwards. That'd be cool, Jeffrey. Yeah, thanks. Or Jeff, sorry. Says, okay.
If it's that good, we might do a in the world about it, if you're lucky.
Yeah, maybe. That's a good
because we haven't done one on animation yet.
No, we haven't, because I don't see it so often. That's why I think it's one of those underrated, unknown features, or and where people don't know how to make the best out of it, but
absolutely. And those people that do, and those people that do, don't tell anyone.
Yeah, they don't tell us, at least. Come on, show us your stuff. Yeah, maybe I'll also figure out maybe a project for myself, but I don't have any real estate to show. So anyway, that is it for the questions.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Looking on my list, next week's webinar will be Pano2VR 101 Maps and Floor Plans. Like this video, it's very much to break you into the or set you off in the right direction for, you know, floor plans and maps. Like this one was very much to get you into the feel of it, find out where everything is within the Pano2VR on how to do animations. We do have lots of videos. I say lots of videos, do we? Yeah, we do. We actually have videos
4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8.
And they also cover using the variable track. So here we've got pan, tilt, field of view. We've also got a projections track as well, so we can start off in a little planet and halfway through. So as an example, you know, we're starting off here as a rectilinear. What I could do is move this over here, change projection to stereo, whiz that right out, and then add a magic keyframe, and you can see it automatically changes to that projection as well. So, you know, there is loads of stuff we can do with this. So yeah, what can I say? There's too much to show in the time that we've got. Even though one would say I've got as much time as I want, but I'm sure you guys don't want to hear me babbling on for the next however how many hours we could actually spend. But yeah, just as I say, just play and you'll be amazed what you can do. But as for next week, 101 maps and floor plans.
Maps and floor. Oh, look! It looks like. Do we have another question that came in? Oh, Greg threw in a question. Oh, it's not a question, but it's a really nice comment. You all have some of the best webinars out there. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. That means a lot to us. We really like doing these webinars.
Buy that man a beer.
Yeah, Greg. Yeah. If we ever meet you, Greg, beer's on us.
No, because now everyone's going to say that, and we're going to be broke.
That's right.
All right, the first person that says it. Oh, Greg, it's you. Right, okay, good.
Yeah. My name's Greg. I complimented you.
Yeah, that's it. Funny, because you don't look like the other Greg that said that. All right, cool. Right, well, I think I'm done. I think I've spoke about this. I'm hoping that you've now got the basics where this springboards you onto greater things with the animation editor. So yeah, I'm done.
Yep,
Karen?
me too. Muchas gracias, Chris. And it's what he says. I meant to say de nada. And yeah, everyone's saying thank you. So I'm just letting you know, Martin. Everyone's saying thank you. There's so. And thanks again to everyone. And next week, maps and floor plans 101. All right.
All right then. So I'm going to just say ta-da, everyone, and I'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye.